So good morning, colleagues. I'm Ian Aird. I'm the CEO of English Australia. And today we have a very important and wonderful session here with our good friends at Austrade, who are going to be... Oh, is there a way I can mute everyone?
Okay, Ian, I'll just mute them as they come in.
Thanks, Sophie. Yeah, so this morning we're going to be spending some time with our colleagues at Austrade, who are going to be giving us a thorough insight into EDI, which is the new MIP, the new MIP. EDI is it's a treasure trove of data and insights into the market that really enables providers to make decisions and to understand the market effectively for their recruitment and for reviewing their business strategies. To maximize the benefits of the session today, we ask that you put questions that you have into the chat. We'll do our best to deal with questions as they come. If we miss them, we'll try and come back to them at the end. But if you can just type your questions into the chat function, we'll keep an eye on that as we go. Can I just start by saying that I come to you today from the Gadigal lands of the Eora Nation and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people on the call on the meeting today. I have today Awa from Austrade. Awa is the data analyst extraordinaire for international education. She will be leading us through some insights into what the EDI package can do for you. And we also have Danielle, who's the senior advisor and manages the content and the platform and the users as well. So I'll pass over to our colleagues now and let you guys kick off.
Thank you, Ian, and welcome everyone. As Ian had mentioned, we do want this session to be as interactive as possible. So if you want to use the chat function throughout and just ask any questions, I'm not sure if we can get a show of hands or just any comments for anyone who is not premium user or who is a basic user, just to understand if you want to say, oh, I'm basic or I don't use EDI or I'm premium, just so we get an idea of who's here. We'll also get any questions if you've got questions about the data, if you've got questions about logging into the site, which may seem quite basic, but we're here to answer anything as we go. And so now I'll just share my screen and we'll get started with the presentation. Okay, so hoping you can all see this. Shout out if not. But yeah, so EDI is basically the new version of the MIP. So it launched in August last year. And essentially, EDI helps you to contextualize a lot of the insights that the data shows. So we do work with our offshore network who are specialists in their individual markets to actually help you provide those insights. So through using EDI, you can identify which markets to target, and we do have specific information for sectors. It shows you where not to focus, so saving you time and money. You can see if students are being recruited from home or onshore, the level of study, the field of study in demand by market and sector, and it also shows the spend by market. Now, when we went from MIP to EDI, we did spend a significant amount of time also doing a lot of research and trying to hopefully provide you something which is a more tailored service and helps you make better informed commercial decisions. So there are two levels of access for EDI. So as mentioned, we have a basic account or a free account. So everything that you need to get to through EDI, you do have to log in and at least have the basic level of registration. That will give you access to basic international student data, market summaries, the select reports, so any industry reports, Austrade updates, government and partner news and events. You can also sign up to the fortnightly newsletter through the basic page as well. If you want to get access to the premium account, it is an additional level of subscription required, so you do need to upgrade your account, but this will give you access to more detailed data and dashboards, subsector opportunity analysis, market insights pieces, all reports, including Austrade commissioned reports, and opportunities which were known as export leads for the last year or year and a half, and all of the Agent Hub content. Now, if your organization already has a premium account, you can actually have an unlimited amount of users. So each organization can have as many users as they want under the one account and under the one fee. But there are eligibility requirements. So generally, we don't allow consultants and agents and media organizations. Aside from that, all other organizations are generally eligible, such as CRICOS registered, non-CRICOS government bodies, representative bodies, EdTech. Now, this year, we also launched a new feature called subsector dashboards. So we have one that's actually specifically for ELICOS. And using this dashboard, you can filter by the provider type and the nationality. So you can see which markets are growing the fastest, the state and market share, visa lodgements, grant trends, and you can toggle between commencements, enrollments, the latest year-to-date data and full year data. And I was going to talk a little bit more about the data in her session as well. So now I'll stop sharing this and we'll take a look at the site. Okay, so hopefully you can all see the EDI site now. Yep. All right, so when you go to education.austrade.gov.au, you'll hit this page. So you won't be able to access anything without at least having a basic level of account. So you can do that here. So you create a free account. And then from there, you can log in and access all of the basic features, which is, I'm just going to log in myself. If you do have a basic account as well and you're wanting to upgrade and it's a new organization, so your organization doesn't have an existing account, just on the About Us section, there's options to actually upgrade. You can also see all of the different features. So there was a table I showed just in the presentation, but if you're wanting to kind of compare what do I get with a free account, what do I get with a premium account, you can go through and see what's available. But otherwise, we'll take you through the market page. So here we have 33 markets, and some of the content here is available at the basic or the free level, and some of it is for premium only. But we'll take a look at Brazil. So this section here, which is known as the market summary, this is available at the basic or the premium level. So you've got a quick at a glance, so what's happening in the market. You've got key market indicators, which shows the competitive position, the market share, and we've also got a link through to the visa grant rates. We tell you about the popular media channels, online learning platforms, a bit of an overview, what the skills shortages are for that market, and any webinars or market briefings that have been done within the last 12 months will also be featured on this page, as well as any news that has been published by Austrade to do with this market as well. So this is all available for free. Then we've got the subsector opportunities, and this is where we have the premium content. So here we actually do a bit of a deep dive into each of the subsectors. So obviously you can see we've got one for English language training as well. And we actually talk about what opportunities are available in Brazil for that subsector specifically, as well as actually looking at where are there limited opportunities at the moment with a bit of a description as to why. And you can also see, again, the student and visa data on the third tab. And again, I will be talking more through this. Now, if you're wanting to get a really high level overview of basically everything that's in EDI, or what's the latest that's been happening, what's the latest market insights, the latest reports, that's where you would go to our news feature. So this is actually just encapsulates everything that's been put through EDI. You can also filter by subsector specifically. So if you're wanting to just know about ELICOS, if you're wanting to know about certain markets, you can filter by that. You can also filter by the type. So if you're looking to know about a certain like data announcements or market insights, you can filter by that. It is a little bit slow to load because again, this is everything that's in the site. So it can take a bit of time, but you can also look at what opportunities. So again, that was previously export leads to see if there's any export leads or opportunities that have been posted for Brazil. And that's all available here. So I'll just stop sharing and see if there's any questions. Okay, cool. Good to see we've got premium user here. But I will hand over now to Awa. She's going to go through the data in more detail.
Good morning, everyone. I also wanted to acknowledge the land that I'm meeting on today is the traditional lands of the Ghana people, and that I respect their spiritual relationship with the country. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm not sure if you can see my slides. Please thumbs up if you can see it before I start. Ian, can you see the slides?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to take you through some of the international education data that we currently have on EDI. So the Education Data and Insights, that's what EDI stands for, and also show you some tips on how to extract some, insights out of the pivot tables that we have on the EDI platform, as well as some of the inputs. So, for example, the Department of Home Affairs data. I'll go through the pivot. Visa grant pivot table for you to see how you can, see how the student visa grants are going for your particular sector, and also be able to compare with other sectors within the international education. So basically, three things that we currently report on EDI to provide you international education student trends in Australia. We basically look at student data. We look at visa data, which is provided by Department of Home Affairs. And we also include export data, which we get from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, ABS. The student data comes from the Department of Education. Basically, they extract the inputs from Prisms, which is a platform that providers report their enrollments and commencement into. So we're provided those files, which we then share with, the public on the EDI platform. So that's where the data comes from. Please feel free to ask questions as I go along. I want to be able to answer them for you so you don't get lost within all the information that I'm going to share with you in the next 15 to 20 minutes. Basically, EDI dashboard, this is an overview of how it looks like. At the top, you've got the export dashboards where you can filter by either month or year to date. So currently we're year to date March, but you can also look at full year data. But one thing to note is when you also download the pivot tables, you can also filter them by year to date. So when we're saying year to date March will be January to March, or you can filter them by full year, so it'll be year to date December. But I'll go through that with you so you understand how to navigate that. You can also filter by enrollments and commencements at the top. And then you've got the split of by state, by nationality, and by sector. And basically, the graphs below are going to reflect what you've selected above. So always make sure that what you're looking at the top reflects what's coming down at the bottom, because sometimes you can just look at ELICOS, and then let's say you select the market Colombia in New South Wales, but you wanted to look at the new commencements. If you haven't shifted from enrollments and commencements, then you'll be looking at the overall number of course enrollments instead of new commencements in the sector. Just a quick overview of the pivot table from the Department of Education. So basically, you can access two of them on EDI platform. One is basic student data. The other one is called subscriber data, but there's two. There's subscriber data 5 years, which has a lot more detail compared to the subscriber full year. So subscriber full year has data from 2005 onwards, whereas the subscriber 5 years has the latest 5 years. So that will be from 2020 to date 2024. And this is the level of information in each pivot table one. So the basic one, which is publicly available, will have enrollments and commencement data that looks at nationality, sector, and by state, whereas the subscriber data pivot tables would have everything, including the broad field of studies, the detailed field, the narrow field, the level of study. So if they're doing a bachelor degree or master's degree, provider type, if it's a public or private provider, if they're doing a foundation course, or if they're so the region largely looks at whether the individual is from Southeast Asia versus Middle East versus Africa, and the university is whether the enrollment and commencement is being undertaken by a university provider or not. So you can select yes or no in that sense. Here's a quick overview of what's included as well in the pivot table from the Department of Department of Education. So the data covers students' enrollments onshore, on people who are studying on student visa. So it doesn't include individuals who are on a tourist visa or all the others, including the New Zealand students or those on working holiday maker visas, etc. I understand that you have students who fall out of the student visa category. And I believe, Ian, that you do publish reports that includes a non-student visa holder individuals who are enrolled in the ELICOS sector. So the latest data we have from the Department of Education is year-to-date March, so basically January to March. And as at year-to-date March, there's just over 77,000 enrollments in the ELICOS sector, and roughly 30,000 commencements. So people who registered, who commenced their course for the first time in 2024. So commencements basically reflect individuals who didn't appear in the previous year, whereas enrollment covers the entire population. So everybody undertaking a course in a sector. One thing to note around the pivot tables is when you're navigating through them, at the top you've got month, which gives you the period that you're looking at. So if it's month February, it's basically saying year-to-date February, so January to February. If you select all, in the middle example I've given here, there will be duplicate in the sense that you're looking at both year-to-date December, the full year data, as well as the latest data year-to-date February. So always make sure that you select the month that you're looking at, the data, the period that you want to analyze, and that you're not duplicating. So for full year, make sure you select year-to-date December. For latest year, so year-to-date March, make sure you select the period of March. And just a quick look of how the pivot tables look like. So you've got the filter at the top where you can select the various variables you want to analyze or look into. At the bottom in the rows, you can drag and drop some of those variables. So if you want to look at nationality in detail, you can put nationality in the raw pivot table field. And then on the right-hand side, you've got in the green, you've got enrollments and commencements. And you can also select the period and put them in the columns. So I've selected the year. So I'm looking at 2014 to 2017 and basically comparing the two across. Basically, this shows I'm looking at all sectors, all regions, all level of studies, all states, all sectors for the full year of December. And this again draws down a little bit more about how you can filter the pivot table. Basically, you can filter from sort highest to lowest if you want to see the ranking on who's which nationality in this instance, which nationality is at the top and who's at the bottom. You can filter by mean, you can filter by smallest to largest if you wanted to see who the smallest which nationality has the smallest number of enrollments or commencements. So you do have quite a lot of option, and you have a lot more control when you're working in pivot tables in terms of the sort of insights you can get. Whereas the what we show on EDI, just gives you what we think you might be interested in. So we do give a lot more information there as well. You can see the enrollment and commencements by nationality, by states, but sometimes you might have a question relating to ELICOS and a particular field that we haven't necessarily demonstrated on EDI, and you want to look further into it. I definitely recommend going into the subscriber pivot tables and looking it through yourself, and see what's in there and what you can get out of it. If you're interested to basically look at the undergrad versus postgrad as a split for higher ed, for instance, you're able to do that as well in the pivot tables, and you just need to manually calculate the share of undergrad versus postgrad if you're looking at higher ed. But in terms of ELICOS, it's one subject, so there's not really a split in terms of level of study. It's one level of study across for everyone. And here's a quick table I put together for the ELICOS sector. We can see that the number of enrollments have grown, the highest level since the data has been recorded. So currently sitting at 77,000. And the share of ELICOS sector against all the other sectors is around 10.5%. So this is year-to-date March data, so which came out on Friday last week. And we can also see the other sectors, how they're faring in comparison to others. So the pivot tables are available on here. So this is how it would look like. So those who have a free subscription will only be able to see, will only be able to see the free student data, which I mentioned earlier only has enrollments and commencements by nationality, state, nationality and state and sector. Whereas the subscriber student data has all the other information that I've just shown you in the previous demonstration. So let's go through some questions on some of the things you can get out of the pivot tables. I'll stop sharing. Let's see if I can get through this pivot here. So here's an example of the subscriber pivot all. I think I mentioned earlier that this one covers from 2005 onwards. So let's say I select 2005. You'll be able to see all the enrollments and commencement from 2005 onwards. So if you're doing a report and looking at trend over a longer period of time, this pivot table is really good. But if you're just looking at, let's say, the last 5 years, you can pick the subscriber 5 years or months. So let me go back to this. And the first question I think I wanted to explore was, what was the share of ELICOS commencements compared to all international commencements in Australia for year-to-date March? So if we're looking at commencements, I think I mentioned earlier, make sure up here you select year-to-date March. It's normally defaulted to the latest year-to-date, but if you wanted to look at year-to-date December, just make sure that you select the December, but I'm looking at March. So commencements in March for ELICOS sector. So ELICOS is here. So all you have to do is basically divide 30,000 divided by 219,000, and then you get the share of commencements across ELICOS sector. The second one was what are the top 5 markets for ELICOS enrollments in 2023. So you can just select 2023 as a year. And then I would move this up, move the sector up and bring the nationality filter down. And we're looking at enrollments. So I'm going to filter largest to smallest, and then I could see sector, select ELICOS. Okay. So we can see the top 5 countries in 2023 for the ELICOS sector in 2023 was Colombia, Thailand, Brazil, China, and Japan. You probably already have all this information, but feel free to ask any questions or anything you would like me to do in this pivot table while I'm here. The third question I wanted to explore was how many Colombian students were enrolled in the ELICOS sector in 2029 compared to 2023. So I'm just going to select Colombia. So you can type in here Colombia. And we're comparing 2029 compared to 23. And I'm referring to the whole year, so I wasn't saying year to date March. So I would select December. So we can see that there were 13,500 Colombian students enrolled in ELICOS sector in 2019 compared to 28,800 who were enrolled in 2023. And like I said previously, you can navigate between year-to-date March to year-to-date December if you wanted to see so far this year how the enrollments and commencements are going. You can also see that there. If I wanted to look which states attracted the largest number of ELICOS commencements year-to-date March, I would move Colombia nationality up and then bring the state field down. And we're looking at ELICOS sector, all markets, year-to-date March. So commencements, and I'm going to filter largest to small. So we can see a large share of ELICOS commencements are in New South Wales, followed by Victoria, then, year-to-date March 2024. I need to select the year in question. And then again, need to go back and make sure that I filter from largest to smallest. And here you go. So New South Wales had the largest, then followed by Victoria, Queensland, WA, and NT had the least number of commencements in the ELICOS sector. If I wanted to see the share of enrollment between private versus, so government versus non-government provider, I can bring the provider type in the row as well, ELICOS sector, and we can see that non-government organizations have the large share of ELICOS enrollments and commencements compared to government organizations. So government organizations would be universities that are government and government organization, as well as TAFEs and any other organizations that's reports to or run by government. And then you can compare between government versus non-government. So that's the first example I wanted to show you around the Department of Education PRISM's data. Is there any question around the PRISM's data, or are you happy for me to move on to the next data set?
I don't think any questions have come through just yet, Owen. So maybe if we continue on, we can always come back if people have questions and want to see how to manipulate the pivot table in any other ways.
Sounds good. So on to the next. So the Department of Home Affairs basically gives us insights around the number of students that are prospective students that are applying to study in Australia, the number of visas that are being granted, and also the grant rate, which gives you the opportunity to see which markets have higher grant rates or acceptance rate compared to those that have refusal rates. You could say the opposite. So for instance, the grant rates are calculated as a share of the number of visas that were cleared in a particular month or period. So let's say if it's a 70% grant rate and 70 visas were granted, you would assume that in that month, 100 visas were reviewed and only 70 were issued. So there will be 30% refusal rate, in another word. And across the 3 pivot tables that we look at, the lodgement, granted, and grant rates, they all have the same information, with the exception of student visa lodged. We don't have a last visa held, which allows you to see whether the individual were previously on a student visa or didn't have a visa, or they were on a holiday visa or a tourist, etc. So that's also there as well. And you've got other key measures around the age, the application type. So we often pick primary applicants when we're looking at student visa data, because they're the cohorts that Department of Education reports to. They don't include secondary visa holders. So secondary visa holder would be the parents or children or partner. Those are not reported in Department of Education, but I understand that sometimes secondary visa holders can undertake an English language course while they're here with their primary applicant. So in the case for the English sector, secondary visa applicants might be of interest as well. But we don't know how many of the secondary applicants are undertaking English courses out of interest. So we tend to focus on the first option. And the other key measure as well is to look at whether the individual was granted or applied for visa, whether they were in Australia or outside of Australia. Because often individuals that apply for visas while they're in Australia may have been on a tourist visa, enjoy their time here, and they thought, why not? Let me stay longer. I want to apply and do some further studies. So we often look at those ones as well. So here's a quick overview. I think I mentioned we also tend to, when you look at the sectors, we remove foreign affairs and defense because those individuals are not captured in the Department of Education's PRISM's data. We have a separate data reporting on EDI that looks at the Australia Awards visa data, Australia Awards program data, which gives you basically an overview of how many individuals are receiving Australia Awards scholarship, where they come from, and which states they're currently residing or studying in. Okay, so next. Okay, I think I'm going to show you quickly how the Department of Home Affairs visa pivot table looks like. Please let me know if you can see this. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. So this is financial year to date April data that we have here. I don't know if you can see my screen. But I've kind of filtered it in a way that might be of interest to you. So financial year to date, let me just unfilter here. There's been 25,600 visas issued for the ELICOS sector. So looking at July to April. If you are interested to see just the January to April this year, so far how many visas have been granted to the ELICOS sector, you would go in the month filter and just select January to April, and that will give you an overview of how many visas were issued in the ELICOS sector so far year to date, and then compared to previous years as well. So year to date April, there's roughly 8,121 visas that have been issued for the ELICOS sector, compared to last year's 18,573 and pre-COVID 9,632. I've filtered it by last visa held, so you can see the number of individuals who either received a visa and they previously were on a visitor visa, they previously had a student visa, or on a working holiday maker. But a large proportion of ELICOS sector individuals tend to have no previous visa before they get on a student visa to undertake the English language course. And here you can include secondary applicant if you're interested to see the number of people who are coming in particular to that sector. For ELICOS sector so far this year, there hasn't been a significant number. So you would have recalled initially there was 8,121. When you add a secondary applicant is 8,831. So it's a rather small share of visas, and this is outside of Australia. So let's include all visas, all locations. Now you can see that we've moved from 8,800 to 10,600. So a small share of that were individuals who were already onshore. If you just wanted to see the individuals that were onshore, how many were received, you can just select in Australia, and it's roughly 1,700. Again, if you wanted to look at the primary applicant only, how many student visas have been issued, it's roughly 1,600. Any question around the visa data? Oh, we are okay with time. I think I'll move on to the next one. We're almost there. Thanks for being patient. Okay, the last set of data that we include on EDI is the ABS export data. So there's 3 particular publications that we're interested in. We're looking at the international trade in, supplementary information calendar year or financial year. That gives you a breakdown of export by sector. So you'll be able to see, how much fees or goods and services have been exported across various sectors. So higher ed, English, ELICOS, vet, schools, and school sector as well. If you just wanted to look at the overall overview of international education export, you would refer to the balance of payments and international investment position. That gives you a quarter report of education export. So the latest, I think the latest was around the first quarter of this year, and that's not by sector. So I don't know if that will be of interest, but if you just wanted to look at an overall how the international education is faring compared to other export goods or services, you can use this one as a reference point. And when it comes to education, ABS reports education export as education-related personal travel in their particular publications. So this one is the supplementary data. This is the quick overview, and basically Table 4 gives you exports by state, and then Table 7 gives you by country, and Table 9 give you by sector. So that Table 9 might be one that you want to have a look at if you wanted to see the value of ELICOS export over the years. And then I did a quick number crunch, and this is how it's looking so far. So for the ELICOS sector, export was valued at 2.6 billion in 2023, which is roughly 171% compared to previous year 2022, which sat around 974 million, and up 61% compared to 2019. Fees were up 94% compared to 2022, but down 12% compared to 2019. So you would say, although the sector has recovered from pre-pandemic, the fee hasn't caught up yet, hasn't really caught up with pre-pandemic fees. So I think so far in 2023, ELICOS fees accounted for 527 million compared to 596 million in 2019. And the share across, when you compare ELICOS to other sectors in 2023, ELICOS accounted for 20% of international education exports. So the recovery is largely in the goods and services compared to fees. So the goods and services is the darker green, where goods and services accounted for 2.1 billion in 2023 compared to 1.04 billion in 2019. It's almost, well, it's more than doubled for goods and services, but not so much for the fee category. That's all from me. Happy to answer any questions. I'll stop sharing so we can see everyone.
Thank you, Awa. That was fantastic. Yes, we can certainly see the cost of living and so on in that huge increase in the goods and services percentage of the export earnings. A couple of questions and then some final comments. We've had a few questions around the subscription model. So I know that we covered that at the beginning, Danielle, but I wonder if we can just briefly cover again how individuals at providers can get a subscription. Just noting that, once your institution has one, then there's an unlimited amount. But if we can just quickly cover that off again.
Sure. So yeah, I've been putting a couple comments in the chat as well. Essentially, if you're completely new, you've never touched EDI before, when you log in, you'll need to create a basic account at first. So when you try to access the site, you'll need at least a basic login. So you just put in your details, you'll automatically get access. So that will grant you everything that was under that kind of basic level umbrella. Then if you decide that you want to access the premium content, if your organization already has an account, and we only just rolled this out about a week and a half ago, so if your organization has an existing premium account, you automatically get access when you first sign up. So you've never been on EDI, you log in, your organization actually is already premium, but you may not be aware. You set up your account, bam, you've got premium access. If your organization doesn't have a premium account, you'll just fill out an additional form and that will come through to us and we'll do a bit of an assessment to see if you're eligible. Again, most organizations would be eligible, I feel like, in this call. It's just really the agents, the consultants, and the media organizations that we don't allow through. But yeah, we can assess your application then and then grant premium access, and that's usually done within a couple of days. The fees, I see there was a question about the fees as well. So that's also on the website. So on that table, which showed you basically basic, premium, and agent. So we do actually have an agent portal. So if there are any agents on this call, we do have an area which agents can access. That's a separate application form as well. So you get your basic and then you pick, do I want premium or am I an agent? And you can go either way there. Both of those require that extra level of assessment. But there's also an option to click the eligibility and fee criteria, and then you can view all the fees based on your organization's category as well from there. So,
and one more question, Danielle. Something that stumped me as well, and has obviously stumped Joan, was when you first log in, it'll ask you for a PIN code. How does a new user manage that process and set that PIN code initially?
So you should be able to set the PIN when you are setting your first passcode, like your password. If you are having issues with that, because we do see that people do come through with that question, you can email EDI, so EDI at austrade.gov.au, and we can reset that for you. And we'll usually try to do that as quick as possible because you won't be able to reset the PIN yourself. So you can reset your password, but not the PIN. So it's just part of that dual kind of double authentication process. But yeah, we'll be able to reset that really quickly for you. So just send an email to edi at austrade.gov.au. I'll put that email address in the chat. There's also, I think, a contact us option on the website. So if you forget the email address or can't recall it, you can click contact us and we'll submit it through the form. And again, we'll get that back to you really quickly with a reset.
Fantastic. Thank you. I just point out that it's for new users, it's really important, and for people who are in the marketing space, is an invaluable tool. I've used it for many, many years. One thing I'd point out is that it covers both the specifics in the data that Awa went through, but also, if you remember back, Danielle covered the market insights, and there's regular updates in there on what's happening in a particular country, and looking at the particular country, its economic situation is a real indicator of how it's going to perform in the future, and we've seen lots of research on that. Another area that we didn't cover today, there's so many things in the platform, but you can also look at local areas. So most data is shown at the national aggregate, and obviously providers will know that what's happening at the country level isn't necessarily what's happening at their individual provider, and you can narrow down to states fairly easily. But there's also something called a statistical area level 4, and that breaks it down even further. I don't know, Awa, are you able to speak to that briefly, and when that data gets published?
So that data used to be published on a monthly basis when we update the other state and national level data. However, recently, Department of Education is undergoing a project to improve that data set. So we'll be able to advise your members when that data becomes available again. But yes, we do publish that data on EDI.
Fantastic. And there's a whole bunch of market notifications and leads on projects that are happening, and there used to be Janelle has asked about export leads that used to be on MIP. Can you show where people can find those leads now?
Sure. So the process has gotten a lot simpler, thankfully, I'm happy to say. So previously we had it in MIP, and they were basically a news item, and they were called opportunities. So if you get the newsletter, you would be able to see all the latest opportunities that were published and available. Then it reverted to something you may be familiar with called My Austrade, where you had to have a MyGov ID and then get set up that way. A bit more of a difficult process, and we could only really provide a short summary, and then you were expected to log in and have that additional level of access to see what was called an export lead. Now we've reverted back to our old process. So the best way to see the latest opportunities, again, as they're now known, will be actually just to subscribe to the newsletter. Everything that's coming from post opportunities offshore will be featured in the newsletter. If you miss the newsletter, again, go to that news filter on the website and then filter by opportunities, and you'll be able to see everything that's available. Again, filter by market, and it's all available in there. So it's right within the site. So no additional login, just your basic EDI login to get to that. But that is for premium users, again, to actually be able to see that. So you can see a short summary, but to actually view the full opportunity in its entirety, you'll need to be premium.
Fantastic. And just as a general bit of context for those who might not be aware, I mean, we're incredibly lucky and spoilt in Australia to have Austrade providing this platform, and the fantastic level of data, as well as the market insights. For those of you who've worked in other countries and the other key source destinations, they are incredibly jealous of the data that we get insights to. It really helps marketing teams and strategists to work out which markets to invest in and spend time in, how things are trending, how to compare their efforts against the market. If you've made a particular investment in effort, time, money in recruiting in a particular region, and you see that you're trending above the averages, then that might lead you to think that you're doing particularly well. Whereas the reverse is also true. If your efforts aren't leading to the outcomes that are at the aggregate, then obviously that leads you to change how you're working in a market to try and make sure you're doing better. So it's a really invaluable tool, and our huge thanks to Awa and to Danielle for spending the time with us today and showing us through things. As Awa mentioned, English Australia does an annual survey, which hopefully you're all aware of, and very soon I will be coming to a capital city near you to present the annual ELICOS survey, where we will see data that is available nowhere else, and specific to ELICOS. As all of us ELICOS people know, we measure in weeks, not in individual students, because 1 week from or one enrollment doesn't equal one enrollment for us, whereas it might in a vocational degree program, one might be 20 weeks long and one might be 50 weeks long. So that report is coming out very soon, and I will be coming around to the States in the middle of June. You will have received emails on that one, so please look out for those invitations and make sure you register. You do need to register to come to the event. Members are all welcome, obviously, and if your institution participated in the survey, then you'll be able to send a single delegate to one of the roadshows. If you haven't participated and you're not a member, you won't be able to attend, and only participants will receive the full report. So a little bit of incentive there. I don't think we have any questions. Has anyone got any final questions for Awa or Danielle? No, it's all silent. Did you want to have any last comments, Danielle or Awa?
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity. It was really good to meet some of your members, and hopefully we'll meet them at the roadshow, as you mentioned earlier. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, Ian, and thank you everyone for coming. It's been a pleasure to spend this morning with you. I would just say as well, since we went from MIP to EDI, we have been spending a significant amount of time trying to redevelop it and really listen to the feedback and try to make this service better for you. It's not supposed to be for someone who's a data analyst or a data geek to be able to use this. We do really want to make it accessible to everyone. So if you do have any feedback at any time, we really welcome that. And
Brilliant.
yeah,
Thank you, Danielle. And I'd just say, as a long-time user of the platform and a total data geek, as you put it, I go with nerd more than geek. But I can honestly say that the new platform is fantastic. It's really nicely organized, really straightforward. Aside from that PIN number to get in, which always tricks me, but I've memorized it now. It's just fantastic. It's really easy to navigate, and yeah, as you say, you can use it quite effectively without being a total nerd like me. But it's so much more fun when you are. And I'm sure we'll spend some time over the next little period when we get through the current storm of legislative change, to come back and do some further training on how to be a data nerd, just like Awa and I.
Yeah, like that, just so you don't have to be a data nerd. We've done the hard work for you. You can just export those charts or data sets and create your own beautiful graphs for your reports. So hopefully it's easier, and if we can make it any easier for you, please provide the feedback to us, and we'll do the best we can to make sure it's easy to use for everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you, Awa. Thank you, Danielle. And thank you to Austrade. Colleagues, that will be all for today. Hope you have a wonderful, productive day. And I'm hoping to see you as I come around the country soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks all.